Hey there, family. How you doing? It's your brother Ryan Radi. Peace to you, peace to your home, peace to your family, peace to your community, peace to your ancestry, peace to my community, peace to my ancestry, and peace to the nation that you, I, and they are building. Peace also to the God of forces, great spirit above, mother below. Good morning, y'all. This is Mtima Radi. Mtima Radi, Soul Lightning. Man, the ancestors put something on me this morning. Oh, they put something on me. Oof, 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 oof. I was re-listening to the video which I just posted about the virus connection to, or the coronavirus's connection to the sun and to Earth's soul. And when I got to the part on the liver, if you haven't watched it, go and watch it. My mind was jumped. I realized, oh crap, I forgot to say something there. I'll actually explain what the liver part was about. There was two Chinese doctors who contracted coronavirus, and they suddenly started turning darker, significantly darker. And when you looked at them, their skin was getting bronze, and dark bronze at that. Now, these were not already melanated, bronze-looking Chinese. These were, they definitely weren't like pale white, but they definitely had a little color in them. The explanation given by the Chinese doctors was something was off with their liver. And that then made their skin turn dark. Now, ladies and gentlemen, my original reaction was, really, the liver? Come on. Then I thought about something. Last year, I had my checkup with a Arab doctor. I have an Arab doctor. And they did my blood work. And my blood work came back. And they said the only thing that they noted was my liver enzymes were high. Not extraordinarily high. Not, oh man, we need to really put you on medication high. But they were slightly high. So I happened to be talking to an older black woman that I know. Probably about a month later. About going to the doctor. I had to actually go back for something else. And what the heck did I have to go back for? I had to go back for something. But I was talking to her about it because I wasn't sure. I was riding into work with her, and I wasn't sure if I was going to be able to make it back to ride into work with her. And so she was like, well, is everything okay? And I started telling her about, the reason why I had to go back. And I go, and plus, I had blood work done, and they were talking about my enzymes are a little high, my liver enzymes, so they're going to keep an eye on it. And she goes, my liver enzymes have been high all my adult life. And I'm like, really? She's like, yeah, my husband's too. She's married to a black guy. He's like, it's just, I'm starting to think we just have high liver enzymes. That was just a conversation we had. And I let it go. Then when I started thinking about it this morning, I don't know how many of you have watched the Boondocks, but Aaron McGruger, who is now married to a white woman, yes, that was a brilliant man. That is a brilliant man, because he's still living. He actually mentioned in one of his episodes, I think it was the one about Uncle Ruckus's life, where Uncle Ruckus is narrating his life and his day. Uncle Ruckus mentioned, that white people, the white man, has a better liver than black folks. That he has a better liver than black folks. Now, some years ago, I was thinking about schools. And there's this guy that I listen to periodically. He's freaking awesome. He's a white guy. Unfortunately, he's deactivated right now because he had a stroke a few years back. And it's sad because, we're at a time period where people like him and Bobby Hemmett should really be basking in the glory of incredible fame. And they have been sidelined by strokes. Anyway, this guy talked a lot about schooling and the real reason for schooling. His name, John Taylor Gatto, Gatto. Gatto. He talked a lot about schooling. He did immense research on why schooling was, the purpose of schooling, and what the actual achievements for schooling is. And he would often say that the education that we get from schooling is meant to keep us dumbed down. Now, periodically throughout the last 100 years, even though he wouldn't ever admit this, there were time periods where this was not the case. And it came after World War II. But the rest of it, he's correct. And I was thinking a couple years back, why is it that we receive such a substandard education in relationship to our physical body? Teachers are obviously not necessarily to blame, but they are doing a big disservice to young people by not teaching them about their bodies. And what I mean by teaching them about their bodies is what their bodies actually do, what specific organs do, how to care for those organs, how to care for those systems, what you should expect, as you age or as those systems have problems. These things should start being taught, I thought, back then, in kindergarten. By the time children leave kindergarten, they should be able to name every major and probably secondary organ in the body and be able to say what the function is of those organs. But just like with nutrition, we're taught really bad nutrition, most of us. Just like that can be a weapon against you, not understanding your body can be a weapon against you. Because if all you know about your heart is that it beats, and all you know about why it beats is because it keeps you alive, what are you really going to be able to do to sustain your heart? I'll give you a great example. I started eating bison meat last year. Bison, which Native Americans, they subsisted off of bison. And they considered it probably the best meat to subsist off of. They ate other things, but bison was, especially for North American Native Americans, bison was their staple food. And when I researched bison and why it was good, one of the interesting facts that I found, which black folks need to pay attention to this, it helps regulate and in many instances strengthen and even reset the pacemaker of the heart. That collection of cells that keep the heart beating steady, bison helps to reset it and to mend it, sustain it. There's something in it that does that. Now think about this. And by the way, it's sad. Oh, it's so tragic. I found out that the majority of your bison meat comes from the most evilest, destructive white man in this country outside of Jeff Bezos. And that's Charles and David Koch. One of them is dead. I never can remember which one died. But the one that was actually the better one died, saying something. And so now we're left with the evil one. I think it's David Koch who's still alive. But he runs the bison trade, which is tragic because this is a divine being and the devil basically is controlling him. That stated, what if you knew that as a black person? Would you maybe, as a young person, say, I want to get into farming, ranching, and I want to raise bison because black people should be eating more and more bison? See, keeping nutritional values from you and keeping information about your body from you can be a weapon. It can be a weapon. It can really be a weapon. I have to go back to excuse me, the liver for just a minute because you know, I am so shocked about that, about the skin turning black because the liver is not, you know, functioning properly. One of the thoughts that I had was that it is possible that the liver is actually malfunctioning in white folks, where it is actually all of the necessary products that would go into creating melanin is filtered out by the white liver because the liver is saying it's not necessary, it's not needed. Whereas in black folks, we have a genetical trigger which says it is needed, it is constantly needed, it must be, you know, protected. And so the higher enzymes that we experience maybe is to functionally take away the neutralizing agents that would negatively impact our melanin. That would negatively impact our melanin. It also could help with taking away agents that could bind to it and stop it from doing what it needs to be doing. Don't know though. That's about it though. I had to add that notation because, man, you know, I remember Bobby Hemmett saying when they don't write a lot about something, then that's when you need to be suspicious. And one of the things that is, you know, it has always been it's always eluded me, is we are told the liver is one of the most important organs in our body. The liver is among the largest organs in our body. Yet what do we really know about the liver? Oh, well, it takes toxins out of the blood. Okay. But the liver is bigger than the heart. It regulates the blood sugar. Okay. But the liver is bigger than the heart. What else does it do? That's a good question, isn't it not? And why is so many black folks afflicted with the sugar? Diabetes. It is because there has been a nutritional war executed against us. I watched a TED Talk where they were talking about black and white athletes, and particularly those who run the marathons. This, ladies and gentlemen, man, they may not call it eugenics anymore, but white folks are massively into eugenics. They are massively into figuring out what makes black people so superior physically, because white people will tell you, at least the honest ones will, who look at the data, they'll tell you physical superiority is not disconnected from mental agility. Meaning a person who demonstrates a physical What's the words? What are the words that I'm looking for? That they demonstrate not only physical agility, but physical, uh, physical accolades that are, or not accolades is the wrong word, but they demonstrate a physical ability that is unmatched by other people. When there's groups that demonstrate that, behind those physical abilities is a mental ability that is unmatched. And the biggest fear that these white folks have is that black people are going to wake up and we're going to realize that our psychology matches our physicality, meaning the greatness that we demonstrate in our physicality is in our minds too. And once we harness this power and combine it with our physique, it's over. This is why they study something called sports psychology. Most of you don't know that. They have been studying for the last 60 years, 50 years, something called sports psychology. I have several books on sports psychology. I didn't even know it was a thing. But they're not even teaching our athletes about sports psychology. Because if you, again, excuse me, if you get beyond the competitive stuff, which is very deep into sports psychology, you get into another aspect, which is about the neural connections and the structures that has to go together just right to coordinate the mind and the body, the physique. And then while coordinating that, to take care of everything that's going around you and analyze it simultaneously and play at your highest level. There was this old commercial when I think it was Edgerrin James. I think it was either who the heck was it? I think it was Edgerrin James, but it may have not been. No. Marshall Faulk, if I remember correctly. Marshall Faulk. He was playing for the Rams back in the 90s. And there was this commercial, and I used to love this commercial. They used to call the Rams back then the greatest show on turf. Tells you how fake the NFL can be, right? Anyway, Marshall Faulk was considered like the man, that like just a dynamo running back. And they had this commercial, which they said, you know, what goes through Marshall Faulk's mind during a run. And they showed him running, and they showed his mask, his face mask. And then, like a computer doing calculations, like he'd get ready to go through the hole, and then a line of data would come up, and then another line, and then he would go through the hole, and then he would see somebody coming from either side of him, and then there'd be more data coming up, and he'd make a move, and then there'd be more data that came up, and then he'd make another move, and then he'd make another move, and then he'd make another move, and then trot off into the end zone. But all along, there was all this data that was scrolling. The decisions that was going through his mind. They've done so much research on who we are as a people when it comes to sports and mental agility, physical agility. Ladies and gentlemen, you don't even know. Again, going back to the TED Talk, I was watching this TED Talk and they were talking about African competitors in the Boston Marathon compared to white or non-African competitors. Now, it's often that African competitors win the Boston Marathon. I think it's the Boston Marathon they were talking about. It was one of the major marathons on the East Coast. They wanted to know why. Now, they dressed it up as, oh, well, we thought this was fantastic. This was amazing. So, we were wondering, why is this that these guys have so much success? No. They wanted to know if there was a way to beat them. I digress though. They studied everything that these people were doing. And what they figured out was that it wasn't culture per se. It wasn't family history. It didn't even appear to be genetics, or so they said. Or so they said. It was nutrition. It was nutrition. The Africans had a different nutritional value system than the Europeans. The Europeans, a lot of protein, a lot of long string carbohydrates. When you flipped it to the African, if I remember correctly, the ones that they mentioned most predominantly was carbohydrates, starches. They did eat protein, but they had a lot more carbohydrates and starches than did the Europeans. And they had different molecular structures than what the Europeans were eating. Ladies and gentlemen, these people have known for some time that black folks have been eating incorrectly. They have been studying our people for the last 200 years. They know we have been eating incorrectly. They know it. And yet, they keep you nutritionally locked down. They keep you nutritionally deprived. Why? Excuse me. Because if you ate well, you'd have the ability to develop yourself into something greater than they want you to be. Something greater than they want you to be. There was this one brother who I was listening to some years back, and he made the mention that the corporate structure, corporations, it's a regulatory structure. It's designed to give food and resources natural extractions to one group of people ahead of other groups. And then as that group becomes glutted with a lot of things, then it trickles to the next group. Then when that one becomes glutted, it trickles to the next group. When that becomes glutted, it trickles to the next group. When that becomes glutted, it trickles to the lowest group. He didn't mention anything about all like the 5 groups. I just, made that up. But think about it. Where do you think we fit in? Where do you think we fit in on that list? Remember what Amos Wilson said. Remember what Amos Wilson said. If you think that these people are going to take food out of their babies' mouths to make sure that you can eat, you might want to look around the country right now. They're about to let their own people starve. Do you really think they're going to take care of you? And just think, this is a preview. This is Mother Nature giving us a preview of what can happen if we don't get prepared for what she's about to dish out while she's going through her healing process. Yeah, this is serious, ladies and gentlemen. This is serious. And we need to take it seriously. Yes. I started off talking about the liver, moved on to nutrition a little bit. You need to take control of your nutrition, ladies and gentlemen. You need to start learning about nutrition. Because if you don't, you're never going to be able to help your family. We are wondering why there's horrible obesity in our community. There's horrible obesity. Yes, I know it's because of food deserts, things like that. But it's bigger than that, ladies and gentlemen. It's bigger than that. We have obesity because the foods that we eat don't meet the dietary needs that our body has. They don't. We eat a lot of sugar. We eat a lot of sugar because, and I was watching some videos back in 2015 on this and talking to some people in Africa about this actually. There are fruits in Africa that are tremendously sweet. Absolutely stunningly sweet. And good. They have different starch content, different magnesium content, potassium content, other things that our body needs. But they can't be mass produced. They can be in certain conditions, but you can't reproduce those conditions. Like there's a fruit that grows, I think it's in Kenya, but you can only find it in Kenya. It is one of the most delectable Kenyan fruits that exist. But you can only find it in Kenya because the conditions to grow it anywhere else have not been able. They've never successfully been able to reproduce those conditions. So and because the Africans are very protective of this specific fruit, no GMOs. They're not letting people go around the world and try to genetically modify this thing. No, it's perfect the way it is. And there's dozens, if not hundreds, of these types of fruit throughout the world. You can't mass produce them. And this is actually important. There's a book called The Invention of Capitalism by Michael Perlman, Perlman. And what's interesting about that book is he actually talks about the industrialization of growing food in relationship to shrinking the variety of food that's actually available. Meaning, what capitalism did was it took foods, like, let's say potatoes. There once was, dozens of types of potatoes that you could get. And maybe even hundreds of types of potatoes that you can get. But only a few of them are hardy enough to be industrially manufactured or industrialized in production. So they actually made extinct dozens of types of potato. Then this book talks about it briefly, but it does talk about it. Africans don't want this to happen. And NGOs are trying to push this green revolution onto Africa to actually cut down the natural diversity of its farming. And there's people who are thankfully going against them and saying, to hell with you. No. But I got way the heck off on this. The nutritional thing is very important, though. So we need to be ready we have to get our minds right on this nutrition. Let me end it here because I'll go on for another 20, 30 minutes. Questions, comments, concerns, leave them below. I'll talk to you guys on the next one.